Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'll be looking at the CSEC Mathematics January 2020 paper 1. This is part 2 video. There's a card somewhere on this video. You can go ahead and watch part 1 if you haven't done so as yet, or you can check in the description below to watch part 1. Also, give this video a thumbs up by pressing the like button. When you do that, you allow this video to reach as many students as possible so all in the community can learn from these videos. So let's get into this paper. So 31, the question says, the volume of a cube whose edge is 6 centimeters long is, now we know that volume of a cube, V is equal to D raised to the third power. So in this case, our volume is 6, so we simply substitute the value. So 6 raised to the cube power or 3 power. That is 6 multiplied by 6 multiplied by 6, which gives us 216 cubic centimeters. D would be your answer. Number 32, it says if it took a speedboat 9 hours to travel a distance of 1,080 kilometers, what was its average speed in kilometers per hour? Sorry, per hour, yes. Now, we know that the formula for speed is equal to distance over time, d over t. Now, our distance is 1,080 and our time is 9 hours. So we simply plug in the value, substitute and divide, and our answer is 120 kilometers per hour. So C would be our answer. Let's move on to our next question. Let's move on to number 33. So number 33 says 2,500 millimeters expressed in meters is, so we know we have to do conversion. First, we have to convert from millimeter to centimeters, and 10 millimeters make, as we said, 10 millimeters make 1 centimeters, and then 100 centimeters make 1 meter. So therefore, 2,500 millimeters, when we multiply from millimeters to meters, that's 1,000. So 2,500 divided by 1,000 gives us 2.5 meters. So B would be our answer. 34 says, an aircraft leaves A at 1600 hours and arrives at B at 1930 hours. Traveling at an average speed of 550 kilometers per hour, A and B are in the same time zone. The distance from A to B in kilometers is, so first we have to subtract our the amount of hours that the aircraft when he left from A and arrived at B. So at 16 hours, so we subtract that 16 hours from 1930 hours, and we got 3.5 or 3.5 hours it took in traveling. Now, first, we know that our speed is equal to distance over time. So since we want to find the distance from A to B in kilometers, we have to use that formula. So in substituting or rearranging to make D the subject of the formula, so D would equal to speed times time. So our speed that they gave us was 550 kilometers. And we know the hours, the time it took in traveling was 3.5 or 3.5. So when we multiply 3.5 by 550, we get 1,925. So therefore, the distance it took was 1,925 kilometers. So D would be our answer. Let's move to 35. 35 now. Here it says, in a rectangular garden plot 15 meters long and 12 meters wide, an area of 80 meters square is used for a vegetable garden. What area of the plot is not used for vegetable gardening? So basically, we are going to use our formula to find the area, length times width. Now they gave us our length 15 meters and our width 12 meters. So when we multiply those two, we get 180 meters square. Now they want us to find the area of the plot. So we would have to subtract the 80 meter square from the 180 meter square. And therefore we got the area for the plot that was not used would be 100 meters square. So the not used part they wanted us to give them. 36 says the distance around a lake is 8 kilometers. On a map, this distance around the lake is represented by a length of 2 centimeters. The scale on the map is, so we know that 1 kilometer is equal to 100 meter. 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeter. 1 kilometer is equal to 100,000 kilometers. So we have to convert. So 8 kilometers would therefore means that we would divide 800,000, which is converted to centimeters, and we would divide it by the length, which is 2 centimeters, and therefore our scale on the map would be 1 to 400,000. So that would be our answer, D for 36. Let's go to 37. Item 37 refers to the following diagram, not drawn to scale, which shows a cuboid. And there we see the cuboid there, and we have the height of 5 centimeters. It says the volume of the cuboid is 320 cubic centimeter, and the height is 5 centimeter. If the cuboid has a square base, what is the length of one side of the base? So we know volume of a cuboid V is equal to length times breadth times height. Now in this case, we're given the height. So V, the volume, which is 320 cubic centimeter. So we will simply substitute our values into the formula because we want to find the length. So V equal length square times height. So we're searching, we put in our value, V 320 equal L square times 5. So in order for us to find the value of L, the length, we would have to divide both sides by 5. So 320 divided by 5, L squared divided by 5 to make L squared the subject which we would want to solve for. So 5 into 520 give us 64, and therefore we square both sides, and the square root of 64 is 8, and the square root of L squared would give us L. So the length of one side of the base is 8 centimeters. 8. Let's move on to number 38. 38. So 38 says, a square has the same area as a rectangular with sides of length 9 centimeters and 16 centimeters. What is the length of the side of the square? Now our formula for area of the square is length times breadth. So our length is 9 centimeters and our breadth is 16 centimeters. So we multiply that and we get 144 centimeters. Now we want to find the length of the square. So we simply say L square equal 144, and we find the square root of both to find the length. So the square root of 144 would be 12 centimeters. So L is equal to 12 centimeters. B for our answer. 39 says, the median of the numbers. Now, what do you know about the median? We know that the median number is actually the middle number. Now, when we look at our median numbers, 6 and 7 because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So our middle number would be 6 and 7. So we simply add those two and divide by 2. So 6 and 7 gives us 13 and we divide that by 2, which is 6.5. So our answer would be C. Let's go on to number 40 now. So number 40 says, item 40 refers to the following frequency table, which shows the time taken by 20 students to solve a maths problem. So here we have time in minutes that represents X and our frequency, and we're given our minutes and our frequency. Now it says the lower class boundary of the interval between 3 to 5 is, now we know 3 to 5. So what we simply do is we actually find the lower limit and subtract 0.5, 0.5 from that. And our lower limit would be 3, and we subtract 0.5 from that and we get 2.5. So B would be our answer. Let's go on to number 41. So here we go. So item 41 refers to the following table, which shows the frequency of scores obtained by students in a test. So we have our scores and our students on the screen, as you can see. Now it says the modal score is, now we know that the modal number is the number that occurs the most. Now, when we look at our diagram here, the amount of students that occurs the most is 12. So therefore, the modal score would be 8. We take that from our given information. So A would be our answer. Let's move on to 42. So here we have it. Item 42 refers to the following diagram of a cumulative frequency curve, which shows the mark obtained by 200 students on a test. So here we have it. So our cumulative frequency and below our mark. Now, what does the question say for this? Here we go. The question says, the median of the marks scored by the 200 student is, now we know that the median is actually the middle number. Now, let's look on our graph again for us to determine that. So here we have our cumulative frequency, and remember the question says the median mark scored by 200 students. So 200 students. Now, what we simply do, we know that the median is a middle number. So when we think of the middle number of 200, from 0 to 200 would be 100. So on our cumulative frequency, 100 would be in this area right here. So we simply go across and see where that touches the x-axis, and then we would draw our line all the way coming down from this point. And when we draw our line from this x-axis coming down, we got 37.5. So you can simply use your ruler and draw a straight line down for you to get that answer. Because we know that each of this represent, so we have 10, so 5 centimeters represent each. So we know this one would be 35 and we got 2.5. So our answer is C for 42. Let's move on to 43. So 43 says, item 43 refers to the following bar chart, which shows the ages of children who took part in a survey. So here we have the number of children and the age in years. Now it says how many children took part in the survey. So what we simply do, we add all the number of years, we look at it and we add all our number of children that took part for us to know. So the number of children on this side. So right here we had 3 according to our information, and then 4, and then 2, and then 5, and then 1. So the total amount of children would be 15 who took part in the survey. So B would be your answer. Let's move on to number 44. It says 600 students write an examination. The probability of a randomly selected student failing the exam is 1/5. How many students are expected to pass? Now, all we simply do, we find 1/5 of the amount of students that they gave us in the examination, which is 600. So 1/5 of 600 is 120. Now, they want us to find out how many expected to pass. So we simply subtract 120 from 600, which gives us 480 students who passed the exam. So C would be our answer. Let's move on to number 45. It says the relations that best describes the mapping in the diagram is, so we know this is relations and function. Now, we know that this would be many to one. Many to one. Looking at the diagram for 45. Now, 46 says, item 46 refers to the following arrow diagram. So there we have it. Now it says the arrow diagram above best describes the relation. So when we take a look at this, we know that it is D because X is a factor of Y. Let's move on to number 47. 47 says, which of the following line graphs represents X is greater than -2 and is less than or equal to 4. So which of these line graph represents it? Well, looking at this, I discovered that there is no correct answer in this question. This was an error on CXC's part. So you cannot circle any answer for this because I did not see the correct answer there. Let's move on to the other question. 48. Now, 48 says, so item 48, sorry about that. Wow, keeps jumping up. Okay, items 48 to 49 refer to the following graph of a quadratic function. It says the maximum point of y equal 4x minus x squared is. Now, when we take a look at our graph here, we notice that the maximum at the top, at this point of the curve, is actually, when you take a look at the curve, it is at 4 on the y-axis. And when you look at the x-axis, we could see that it is at 2, right here at 2. So that's where the maximum point of the curve is. So x is 2 and y 4. So our answer would be C for 48. Let's move on to number 48. Let's move on to number 49. It says the values of x at the points where y equals 4x minus x squared intersects y equals 0 are, so y equals 4x minus x squared. So they say y equals 0. So what we simply do is substitute anywhere we see y, we put in the value of 0. So 0 equals 4x minus x squared. So we simply, so 0 equal x, open bracket, 4 minus x, because we realize that x is common among this group. So in grouping, so 0 equal x, 4 minus x in brackets, and then x is equal to 0, and 4 minus x is equal to 0. So we solve to find x. So x is equal to 0. We have negative x would be equal to 0 minus negative 4, and therefore two negatives cancel out. So we're left with x equal 4. So x is equal to 0 and x is equal to negative 4. So 4 minus x is equal to 0. So negative x is equal to 0 minus 4. So x is equal to 0 and x is equal to 4. So this answer here is incorrect, friends. It should actually be A. X is equal to 0 and x is equal to 4. So 49, the correct answer is A. I made an error on this encircling, highlighting D. It should have been A. So let's move on to 50. It says, which of the following represents the equation of a straight line? Now we know the equation of a straight line is y equal mx plus c. So we simply, so since y is equal to mx plus c, we know that y, looking at our answer, y would equal to 2x plus 3 according to the formula for the equation of a line. Let's move on to 51. It says, which of the following sets is represented by the function f of x, x squared plus 3, where x equal 0, 1, 2, 3. Now, we know we simply put in our equation x squared plus 3, simply plug in our values, substitute our values. So anywhere we see x, we would replace the values of 0, 1, 2, and 3. So we have to work them out. So when we use f of 0 equal to 0 squared plus 3, 0 squared would be 0 plus 3, and so that would give us 3 for our answer. So x equals 0, y equals 3. So our values would be 0, 3 for the first one. The second one, 1. F of 1 equals 1 squared plus 3. So that would equal to 1 squared is 1 plus 3, which would give us 4. So f of 1, that is 1 and 4 is our next values. Now, next value is f of 2. So f of 2 equal 2 squared, substituting it in x squared plus 3, 2 squared plus 3, 2 squared is 4, 4 plus 3, that's 7. So our next values would be 2, 7. And substituting the value of 3 in our equation, f of x, x squared plus 3. So f of 3 equal 3 squared plus 3. 3 squared is 9 plus 3, that's 12. So our values would be 3 and 12. So for 51, that would give us 3 and 12. So the answer that matches all our values is D. Let's go on to number 52 now. So 52 says a line L is parallel to the line 2x minus 5y minus 8 equals 0. What is the gradient of the line? So we know that given that we got 2x minus 5y minus 8 equals 0, so we know what we are working with. So what we simply do, we know that for the gradient, it is y equal mx plus c. So we know the setting of the formula that we should work with and how our answer should look like. So we simply work out 2x minus 5y minus 8 equals 0. So we're making y the subject. So 2x minus 5y equals 8. We take the negative 8 over the equal sign, it becomes positive. So we have negative 5y equal 8 minus 2x. Now we're trying to make y in our equation the subject of to find the gradient. So we divide through by negative 5 by both sides. So y is equal to 2x minus 8. Now it is simply saying negative 2x divided by negative 5 and the negative 8 divided by 5. Now we know that in order for us, we know that the two negative 2, the negatives and the negative 5, both negatives cancel out each other. So we're left with y equal 2x minus 8. So therefore, the gradient of the line L we're looking for is 2/5, this part here. So C would be our answer. Let's go to 53. So 53 says the item 53 refers to the following diagram, which shows a translation. And so we see the translation. We're given values of x and y. So it says in the diagram, the translation by which AB is mapped onto A prime, B prime is represented by. So what we simply do is take the values from x and y and subtract them for us to know what it is represented by. So here, so we simply subtract our two values. So 4 subtract 2 and then 6 subtract 5. So when we deduct those, we get 4 from 2, we're left with 2, and 6 from 5, we're left with 1. So that is represented by, the translation is represented by 2, 1, which would be B. Or you could have simply used the other values at the top here, 7 subtract 5 or 8 subtract 7. You would have gotten the same result. So B would be our answer. Let's move on to our next question now. Number 54. It says item 54 refers to the following diagram. So it says in the diagram PQ and RS are parallel. Which of the following best describes the relation between P and Q? Now, when you take a look at this, right away we recognize that the alternate angle P and Q are the same. So therefore, our answer would be A, P equal Q. Let's move on to number 55 now. It says a ship sailed 8 kilometers due east from A to B. It then sailed 6 kilometers due north to C. Which of the following diagrams best represents the path of the ships? So first, if it says 8 from A to B, so, and then, so this is what our diagram would look like. So C would be our answer for 54. Let's move on to our next question. 56. So 55, sorry, that would have been C. 56 says, in each of the following diagrams, OB is the image of OA. Which of the diagram shows a reflection in the x-axis, in the y-axis? So from our given diagrams, B would be our answer when you look at all of them. So B would be our answer. Let's move on to our next question. 57. It says in triangle ABC, angle A equal x to the x degrees and angle B equal 2x degrees. What is the size of angle C? Now simply we know that in a triangle we're given three angles. Now we know the total measurement of a triangle 180 degrees. So we simply, for us to know the angle, to find angle C, we would have to put an equation. So we know 180 minus x degrees minus 2x degrees. That represents our triangle. And when we simplify, we get 180 minus 3x degrees. And therefore, if they had asked us to solve, we would have known what would be the value of angle C. So D would be our answer. Let's go to 58. So here we have 58. Item 58 refers to the following diagram which shows an enlargement. Now it says in the diagram, triangle ABC is mapped onto triangle A prime, B prime, C prime, where O is the center of enlargement. What is the scale factor of the enlargement? Now, for us to determine the enlargement, we simply look at our figure and we notice here, since this is an enlargement of this triangle, when we look at our scale factor, we recognize that it is actually two points on the x-axis. They are 2 points apart. So if we notice here, 2 and here 4, that's our 2 points. So that's 2 parts. So 2 units. 2 units we can see that is a part. So we're looking for our answer to be 2. So our answer would be D for 58. 59 says, item 59 refers to the following pair of similar triangles. And so it says the length of MO in centimeters is. Now, when we look at this triangle compares to this triangle, we could see that it is twice in length. So they said the length of MO, which is, so we want to find the length of MO. Now, looking at our first triangle, AC is 7 centimeters, and since it is twice this triangle, we simply divide that by 2. So 7 divided by 2, so MO would be 3.5 centimeters. Let's take a look at our final question. Item 60 refers to the following right angled triangle. Which trigonometric ratio is equal 4/8? Now we know the trigonometric ratio is SOHCAHTOA. Now they want us to find the trigonometric ratio 4/8, which means that it would be BC right here over AC. So right away we realize that we would use that is opposite over the hypotenuse. So opposite here BC and the hypotenuse AC here, which is 8 centimeters. So the trigonometric ratio for us to find, which gives us opposite over hypotenuse, we know that would be sine. So our answer would be A sine x. So this is it. We have come to the end of part 2 of the CSEC Maths January 2020 paper 1. So we have completed the paper in full. Thank you so much for watching.